No vea, a Sevilla. Y al último que cuando ya salió la bien de regla.
It is Wednesday on Raid Shadow Legends, but you knew that. Now, it's been a while, hasn't it? About a week since I've done something like this. Did you miss me? No? Oh, fair enough. Okay, so I'm a few days late to this topic, but well, previously I did say that Live Arena was something that Plarium has no idea what to do with anymore because, you know, the PvP scene is a complete mess in this game. They have found some way to get people to playing the best game mode of all time ever in this regard. And that starts when we look over at our advanced quests and, oh, what's this? Win one Live Arena battle as part of my advanced. You have to win one, not just play one, so if you lose that doesn't count. Because you don't do this, you don't get that, and you don't get that. And believe me, in a game like this one, it adds up if you're doing that over and over. Otherwise you're saying, oh, I can't do fusions because I don't have any energy. Like, yeah, the fusions are really high value as well, which is why I've put all this effort into... Yeah. Anyway, so few people are quite unhappy about that, knowing that they're going to do it anyway because Plarium owns their soul. They don't like it when I tell them that, but they know I'm right. But they have added a little sweetener into the deal, and that is these boxes here for Live Arena Daily Wins. You get some multi-battles, which are fine on mobile, useless on PC because you use RSL helper. A bit more energy, and then this box over here, which can give you some bits and pieces, including 3 pieces of Impulse or Zeal, which can be all the way up to 6-star Mythical, regardless of your rank from what I've found. But you won't get Dust, Powder, and Artifacts in the same thing. You'll get one of these 3, then one of these 2, both of these, and then the rare chance of a single legendary skill tome, because if they gave out more than one, then they would bankrupt themselves in about half an hour, and yeah, that's what they tell us. So, obviously, right now, Live Arena is closed for 2 hours, so if you're expecting myself to play right now, then, well, I can't do so. So what I'm going to do is, because I have been recording over a few days, partially for self-reference, but otherwise for possible content, I'm going to present to you a bunch of Live Arena games that I have played, some of which are on my own account, some of which are on others that I've been driving. Again, if you want Live Arena driving for yourself because you want these rewards on a daily basis but you can't stand Live Arena, which is understandable, it's a bit of a mess. Okay, a bit of a mess is understating, but you get the idea, right? Then, yeah, there's the usual in the description and contact myself and yeah. So, yeah, obviously for the games I'm going to be commentating over, this is going to be off because I didn't have it on at the time, and otherwise I'd be trying to mock up something that wouldn't be too convincing in that regard. But yeah, they're all going to be mixed up in no real order to keep it interesting in terms of wins, losses, accounts, etc. But yeah, that's going to be all of my active commentary on this, and whether you watch the rest or not is entirely up to you. Doesn't make too much difference either way in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, until then. So our first game of the day is one of my own, where my opponent seems to have the right idea in how to play this game when it comes to pick every single mythical champion that you have all at once, because red borders are better than gold borders. After all, I only have one red border champion, so that means I'm at a disadvantage, right? Well, unfortunately for him, we have picked Mariah's Gallant, who makes playing the game pretty impossible for a strategy reliant on mythicals. Now, sensibly, he does ban it, which would, again, mean we're in a bit of a bad spot. Right? So, First point of call is that he isn't particularly fast. Sure, Star Sage is about 320, but we are able to move a couple times, and we don't quite have the damage to immediately take down the Alaz with just an Alpha Say 1, so we have to do this another way. Carnage counterattacks into Stone Skin's off his A1 passive a couple of times, but it doesn't really do anything. Now Star Sage correctly goes for the Alt A2, doesn't land it on Ankoro or Narcissus, which is a 25% chance given how we have Stone Skin and Lightning Cage. And Nace puts up his defenses, which isn't really something we can do too much about because we don't have any ignore block damage. But we do have Lady Mikage who has a stun, and Nace doesn't really have much of a defense against that, apart from trying to resist it. Along with the fact that Narcissus can't take damage from counterattacks, while Ankora is on the field, and this is more of a waiting game. Although if we can help it, we'd rather Nace not take a turn regardless, because his Alt A2 does hit very hard, and if he starts reviving people, this match can get out of control very quickly. From what would previously seem as a writings on the wall 1v4 scenario. So at this point there's really not too much to do. Wake him up again. He doesn't hit too hard into Ankora, but Ankora is pretty tanky all things considered, which is pretty important when it comes to trying to survive anything like a Georgia Day 3. So he has to hit both passive and Helm Smash in order to one-shot her. Again, all we're doing now is waiting around until we finally get through him, because he's got no more block damage, and form back, and that should be the end of that one. Switching over to a different account for the next game, because I am driving for someone who is quite literally Silver 2 with a pretty interesting roster, but with very little will to actually play live arena, which is understandable. I don't think that's a particularly well kept secret. Now, one champion he does have that I wanted to try out a few times is Gallia's Woodcrest, who we have to take in this game. Skinwalker's defense Mythical, defense on both forms. The first form is more of a Hydra champion, although I wouldn't rate him too highly for like nowadays, you know, what with the changes and all. And the second form is more of a damage dealer, and in this case we picked him against double blue carry, so that puts us at advantage that way due to the fact that both of them can weak hit on us. And you notice that damage isn't particularly the highest, because this camp has a lot of champions, but the gear isn't incredible, I would say, which is the same I can say for a different account that I play on pretty routinely. But overall, this is already looking pretty decent for us. One weakness of Gallius, I would say, is that he is reliant on you having increased defense because he can't supply it himself, but that's for another time, because now we're going over to the other account that I just mentioned in terms of having lots of champions but not too much in terms of gear. Now already in terms of draft, my opponent makes a bit of a mistake here in terms of picking Nishat not last and allowing myself to pick two champions who are very good into bombers, in terms of both Marichka and Mithral. They banned Mithral, which is the more correct choice here, but already this is looking a bit bad for them. Although it turns out that is not just them, my opponent, who has made a mistake this game, and you will find out quite quickly what I have done wrong. All we need to do is wait for it to be my turn, because my opponent's showing off in terms of speed stats. And yep, our Mithral is not the fastest champion on our team. So Lazarus passes on, and Korra just barely survives because this Nishak isn't particularly well geared compared to some. But after this game, we made a point of furiously re-gearing this Mithrala so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. because otherwise it might have been a bit difficult to close this out purely with just the Mythical and Harima. Because Harima is instinct and stun, but the damage isn't the best. Increased defense does help, but like at this point we're kind of fine, especially when the Shack tripped Harima's polymorph in terms of the Rapid passive, which puts a protected poison on her afterwards, after the bomb expired. So at this point you can revive Lazarius and it's pretty much all but over. You go for the base A2 in case I've miscounted Nishak's cooldown somehow and he'd have a bombs again. By the looks of it, it turns out that he doesn't, because he's thinking about his turn, that he has nothing there, and yeah, there is little more to be said at this point. So we're going to just move on. So back to the Silver 2 account again, and obviously we're going to first pick our mans here because, well, he's our mans. They've tried to print counters for this guy. They failed. Battle showed it another time. Obviously, our opponent responds with the same. And again, we do pick Gallius because he's pretty decent into both Thor and Odin, although more so Thor because of strong affinity. But he can deal with Odin's blood damage passive because of the buff removal on the alt A3. Now, one thing I will say about Odin is I don't think he was a great addition to this game, purely because of the minigame of having to keep counting to 9 over and over, unless you really just don't care about blood damage whatsoever. So, Odin goes for the A2 and gets it pretty convincingly, especially because they banned Ankora and not our mans. They expected to go first. They were correct to do so because our mans is about 290 speed, I believe. And obviously, the issue with Gallius here is when he's under decreased defense, not only does that cut his way to reduce damage, but his way to deal damage. And without a cleanse of our own, this may be a bit of an uphill battle. Now, obviously, our mans has resolved in A2, which has very much immediately managed to claw this back because, you know, Armand's is one of the champions that is allowed to pick in this game. And UDK means that it's going to be a bit difficult for Pacific to land sleeps and anything, and for is both waiting to take his turn as a 150 speed Sheik who is locked out entirely, and we're also against the world's weakest Odin because he completely ignores defense and hits a grand total of 26,000 on our UDK. So he just obviously doesn't have much crit damage whatsoever. Now, Gallius, as you noticed, does not have the most resistance because most accuracy even, because our Armand is about 440 accuracy and Gallius is 280, and he didn't land the decreased defense on Zippy. Got it on everyone else, but apart from that, there's not more to be said at this point. Back to the Gold 1 account again now. This originally started at what I think was Silver 2, and we just worked our way up. Now that we're in Gold, we've prioritised taking Lazarius first, then Karima and Ankora in either order, in terms of what I think is best for us to have and the opponent not take away from us. And the last two picks are relatively flexible from Armada's pool. So our opponent opted for the last pick Cardinal here, which is an interesting choice. Not one I didn't really go for, but I could see what they're going for here in terms of having a way for their pretty slow nukers to be able to take guaranteed turns. Especially when one of them is an E3 who does have his permadeath. Now, the first thing I note here is that there's a bit of a speed check that's about to happen, because you would think it is something as simple as an E3 uses A2 and immediately one-shot Protoss with permadeath, but it would seem that even with Arbiter speed lead and Arbiter A3, this an E3 is still not going to move in time, and both of the nukers do fall down after a pretty questionable use of Trunder's A1 into a Stone Skin Lazarius. I guess they were quite afraid of accidentally giving Rotov an extra turn if Trunder failed the stun. So obviously Cardinal is locked out for 2 turns from Lazarius passive, but if we don't break the Stone Skin, then 1 turn she's going to just waste doing nothing, another she is going to resolve her A3 revive, and at that point things could be quite bad. But it doesn't seem that she's the tankiest in the world, which again is the whole gear check aspect, and well, down she goes. Next is back to myself, and nope, this isn't a mistake, this isn't the exact same match as the first one. We ended up against the same player, and after thinking about it for a second, we think, okay, so he doesn't want to see Marias at all if he's going to pick Mythicals again, but do we just want Narcissus in a way, because if he happens to have it and picks it, we're in a pretty bad situation. So we go for taking Narcissus first and just gamble that he doesn't have Marias, which is pretty unlikely, but yeah. So otherwise the draft is very similar. He goes for Sequin and not Alaz this time around, which means you have to be a little bit smart about this in terms of Sequin passive and his revive. Now obviously Narcissus A2 can go straight through Sequin passive if need be, but it is lining that up, especially with the knowledge that Star Sage is slower than our Shuzen and Mikage, but faster than everything else, and we can't really slow him down because he's in Stone Skin. Now, an interesting thing to see here is that due to attack order, Nace would 100-0, that Narcissus would 100-0 Nace immediately, but then his passive would go off, he's kept alive on 1 HP, but then the hit and everything else comes in and Nace doesn't survive that. So, Star Sage pretty foolishly goes for the revive, both Carnage and Nace fall down. Sequin lives on 1 HP somehow, and that's not even from his passive. We just left him on about, well, 1% of his HP. So we're going to go for the stun here. Stun obviously trips Sequin's passive, and while he'll turn up block damage on him, which stops much of our interactions past that point, we do have ways to deal with this. You think, do we go for the A1 lockout, or just the A3 to put damage on him? We choose the A3. We get the 50% chance to not remove Stone Skin, but we don't really have to worry about what happens past that point because our opponent decides, nah, never mind. Back over to the Silver 2 count next, and we're going against someone who doesn't have the level 100 debuff, so to speak, so tournaments like Sun Devil are much cheaper and easier for them, and we once again first pick the Armands because why not? And one responds with their own Armands in the way to guarantee that they're faster than yours because, like I've always said, the opponent is always faster than you until proven otherwise. Now, the Phoenix counter pick here is very interesting because I know what's going to happen here, but I'm partially banking on my opponent not knowing what Narcissus passive does and trying to ally attack into him instead of Gallius. And even if they banned Narcissus and then permadeath Gallius, I was pretty confident that we could win this just purely from Arman's lockdown because, you know, that's just the sort of thing that he does. So, to the surprise of no one at all, they do go first. Where does this Mikage ally attack go on to, assuming they are going to do that? Yep, it is that. It is on Gallius, and I don't think the weaken from Arbiter actually mattered there. The Phoenix seemed strong enough that he was going to do away with Gallius regardless. And that leaves us with one less champion than before, and now I'm expecting Lazarius, Alt, A2, and he doesn't do it. He decides to just go for a block box instead, which I disagree with. And now that means that our Narcissus is going to be able to take a turn. So do that, and this should be the end of everyone. Not quite. Unless crit Ankora. She's not actually built in crit, but just a 15% chance, more or less. Our opponent presses the Metamorph button just because they can, but there's really not much more to be said here apart from a rather interesting proc of the Impulse accessories, where Mikage procs Polymorph off UDK, and yeah, that's going to be all of this one because there's no communication here whatsoever. So back to myself, and our opponent here is fresh into Gold 3 with a clean rank of 4000. So this one should be pretty simple, right? Right? Well, cut to later in the draft, and it turns out that it's not looking quite as good. We do ban the Siphi because if they let Torment through, then it's entirely possible that their entire team gets frozen after they use our base A3. But turns out that this +2 6-star Nisha is going to be an issue for another reason, because it's in both Stone Skin and Intercept. So what is already our rather lackluster polymorph is now looking even worse. Or it would do, because then my opponent decides to do this, which is not the correct move. Already, if this all happened, and Crow would just die to bombs like how you saw Marias took 82,000 for a single one and didn't survive the rest. But when our Narcissus has a lot of HP, he's able to just about survive the second one because we don't even need to save the rest of that because my opponent realizes what's going to happen right before it happens and gives up. So back to the Gold 1 account once again. And as always, there's no reason to pick anything apart from the Zarius for ourselves because, put it this way, I've played on others, I've seen what happens when people get a 6-star Zarius. It does not end well. Sensibly, they ban it from us because their entire draft is not particularly into it. But the Queen Eva is a bit of an issue, which is why we had to pick Rotos as a third carrier there, in case it was just the case of they ban the Lazarius, Permadeath and Rima, and then we have a bunch of supports who can't really close up against the Star Sage because he builds up a lot of resistance. Now, using the ulti for the Star Sage there, I disagree with, because you wanted to be extra shot at removing Ankora's Stone Skin. Harima obviously falls down because she had to pass quite a few checks in terms of surviving against the Queen Eva, and that leaves us with just 3 once again to try and close us out. Well, bit of a grapple glitch there in terms of thinking Arbiter's still alive. She isn't. The game just can't really properly process champions being defeated. The technology isn't there yet. So counting to 9 turns like before, we're able to remove all of these lock damages, and we get the 65 in terms of not weak hitting against Star Sage, so that's taking a bunch of HP off him. And now Queen Eva has a bit of a challenge on her hands, because while she could definitely deal with Mikage, Rotos and Korra are not quite as simple. Mikage is locked out, but it doesn't stop us from sleeping Star Sage. Queen Eva gets the deterrent counterattack, but pays for her life with it because even a single A1 from Rotos is good enough, combined with the Ward of the Fallen stack because we have one who's downed, and just because we can, we switch back to base form while they attack, and turns out, yeah, we didn't even need that, we could have just left click. But you knew that, didn't you? Right, back to the Silver 2 account for this one, and from the start it's going to be the same as it always is because why would I bother picking anything else? But past this is a bit of an exercise in making sure that you've got a decent string of matchups to turn around what would otherwise look quite bad. So first point of call here is banning the Sun Wukong because Gallius struggles quite a lot into Sun Wukong, and is a reason why I don't pick it many games or just as a last pick, because as much as we'd like our mythical carries to be a safe pick, sometimes they just aren't. Now, obviously we aren't speed tuned correctly, so while our Sithy does go first, from there the Arbiter and Mikage go along, and we don't have our increased defense anymore. So in terms of choosing moves here, we have a few to go for and decide, okay, normally this is a Hydra form, but we'll give it a go with base because Ward is yet to move and we might as well get one of their cooldowns as they're available. So Hefrak does pretty much nothing to begin with, which is quite interesting. But we are still yet to do quite a bit because our Narcissus is locked out and Agalius isn't going to get to move. And they have the revive, and these are going to move again, and my opponent does go for the Warlord A2, which is a bit questionable against Narcissus, but I suppose we don't have too much of a choice. And the Hefrak is going to move before our Gallius. Skin Hefrak does pretty much nothing, and we decide to go for the Warlord, I believe, not caring too much if the Hefrak wipes our support. Press a button and everything goes down. And as for this last game, well, this one has its own commentary, so yeah.
Mythical or Motorola?
Mythical. Building call dog question: Vermintide or Armans? Because they're banning Mythical 100%.
Yeah. Who's in Stone Skin? Everyone except for...
It doesn't really matter because they're going first regardless of the Sithy. I'm just thinking in terms of what odds get better?
I was just thinking
Armans or Vermintide?
Hardman.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Wait, he didn't. Huh? Huh?
Oh no.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's not what we meant to do. If I just banned our man's fair, then you lose. So there's nothing you can do about it.
You instant lose. Well, we've...
Right. This. I mean, gold wine is a trip. Like.
So, Warlord's gonna go before.
Yeah.
Gonna steal Mikage's turn meter. Oh.
Yeah. We 75 it. Who did sheep? Ankora. Okay.
Ankora.
What's he doing?
Fine.
I mean, I guess polymorphed. Okay.
Just A1, yeah.
Yep. I don't want to be in this one because I mean, we can fight this pretty handily.
What?
Yep, get to that.
Sleep the sheep. Classic.
Sleepy sheepy. Yeah. Because our man's isn't even any good into this for the most part.
Nicely, Mithrala.
Yep. Because Mithril because resistance stat is really relevant against Surfy. What polywolves? Armans and
You. Yeah.
yep.
And no, he's. Well, I guess unless if he gets a sleep stiffy and you're fine.
Yeah. Wait, why is
Without
Armans
block buffs,
reversed?
he's boned.
Yeah.
He's gonna polymorph.
Is this guy stupid? Why is he not using it here? That's twice now he's used this on. But sorry, this worst player I've ever gone against. There is no world where you press every button wrong over and over and then wonder why this happens. Anyway, if you sat through all of that, then, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you another time, won't I? Most likely. So yeah. See ya.